Mark Browning, and we're going to thank you for coming. You're Bucyrus, Erie. Most of you are relatives of Bucyrus, Erie people. Thank you for your service to the Bucyrus, Erie company. My grandmother had more seniority than anybody in the room. She worked there from 1916, 1918. She was a secretary there, so you got a little bit more seniority. You gave us a tour when I was in high school. My wife and I went for a tour in the 60s, and it was just, I still remember the tour. They don't do that anymore. What we're going to do today is the purpose of our museum. We've got a lot of members here, and I'll just introduce them quickly. My wife's not a member, but she does a lot of work. Donna, that's my wife in the blue. This is Donna Bone. She's a member of the board. Worked at Bristol Myers. That's a company over on the west side. And this is Pat Doris, and she owns that yellow plane out there. That's a trainer for a T6 trainer for World War II. Her husband only worked on it forever. He got all kinds of awards in Oshkosh, and we'll be seeing that in a few minutes. Now, the reason we're talking today and the purpose of our museum is Evansville, or the World War II affected Evansville, affected the world. But Evansville changed also the world and the war. So that's our mission. We stay right with that mission. Now, it's just not the P-47s. It's not just the LSD. It's not just a bullet factory. It's everything. And we made 330 different products in Evansville. 330. Somebody hand me that hatchet back there and bring it over here. There's a hatchet on there.
Oh my goodness.
Here back there. Hatchet plus it. We made 330 products in Evansville, Indiana. We were the highest per capita construction people for World War II products anywhere in the world, more than Germany, more than anywhere in the United States. We had 70,000 employees that worked for the World War II effort. 70,000. 120,000 people at the most. Okay, this little hatchet, we'll see if everybody knows where it was made. It was made at a place on the west side. I know I've got a couple West Siders here. American Fork and Hoe, 1942. Right on Maryland by the Big Top. Right next to Shane. And this was made at Shane. So how many of these things did they make in World War II? A lot of them. American Home. Now, a guy named Bill Yunker gave this to me yesterday. He has all kinds of things. He's got a motorcycle that drops out of they drop it out with a parachute on it. But it's a motorcycle he's got, and a guy named O'Brien's got a couple of those motorcycles too. But this is just 2 out of the 330 products that we made here in Evansville. We made a ton of things. And that's what we're going to resurrect. So you got things in your garage, and you got things in your attic that you don't even know are there. So we'd like to have them, and we'd like to display them. Come on in. We'd like to display them when we can. We'll try to display everything. We just got somebody on the board that likes to make cabinets. So this whole room's going to be full of cabinets that are going to display things. And we're going to rotate things. And we're going to describe things that were made in World War II in Evansville. That's our purpose. And you can help us just by finding things, letters, anything, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, anybody that worked at any of those plants. And I won't go over every plant here, but I'm going to talk about a lot of them. Now we're going to start in this room, and then we're going to work to the hangar, and then we're going to work to a room called Bucyrus. Okay, you've got your own room here. So you're sort of the leaders in showing us, and showing other people in Evansville that industry was important. And you did a lot in World War II, you did a lot before World War II, you did a lot for the Panama Canal. There's a lady over there on that picture, and some of you can see it. She's over on the wall. She's standing up, and she was a ferry pilot in World War II. There were about 1,800 women that applied to be ferry pilots. The men didn't fly the planes in the States. They flew them in the water. So they were busy training, and so we had to have the women fly them. And these were actually very good pilots. 1,800 went to the school, about 700 washed out, about 1,100 ferry pilots in World War II. They were all women. And we had made 6,200 P-47s here, and these women flew them from here up towards north of here near Vincennes, or south of Vincennes, near Princeton, over on a field in Illinois. And then they had them all stacked there, and then they took them to other places. They flew B-24s, they flew everything. The women were great pilots. Okay, they were called ferry pilots. They never got a military rank. The general who was in charge of all the military Air Corps was General Arnold. And he was smitten with the lady that was in charge of these women. So he tried to get the women in the military and get them ranks. And that all fell through at about 44 to 45. in 40, Don Kunzwitz told me, he gave us a plane out here, and he's told me the story that he was a pilot ready to go over to Battle of the Bulge, and they kicked a lot of them out because they were going to put the women in. But Congress got irate over it, and so it never followed through. But these women were very instrumental and very important in World War II. Okay, now behind the handsome gentleman there with the light on him, turn around, we move around. That's a picture of a if you look at that, that is where the P40, that's where the LST plant was. And Mr. Who's the gentleman I gave a tour to earlier? Mr. Daly.
Jack Daly.
Jack Daly. And Mr. Cressel said he was Mr. Doolittle, but I think he was Do-a-lot. Now I think you were just kidding. No. He wasn't Mr. Doolittle. Okay, he named kidding. Okay.
Everybody had a nickname.
But Mr. Doolittle, Mr.
Daly.
Okay, Mr. Daly, like John Daly, the golfer. He saw that burn up. That plant burned up about 1946. He was up on top of Wrights Hill. It was 46 and 47 when it burned. He said it was so hot you couldn't even stand. And that's about a mile away at Wrights Hill. And you see Wrights Hill, there's 3 smokestacks there. The 2 to the left are Sigco. The 1 to the right is Wrights Hill. That's Wrights High School right up there. So if you go out there, there's about 45 acres there, and it was all shanties in World War II. About 1941, it was all shanties. There wasn't much there. And if you go out there, that's where Bristol Myers parking lot is. And you come to about where that young girl's standing, that would be B. Johnson Terminal there. So they would make about 8 at a time there and push them in the water. We, at the highest production time, we would make 1 every 60 days, from beginning to end. And then after you got done with them, you push them out in the water, and that's where they outfit them, put other things on them, because they were sort of an empty ship. Then they go down the river. The front of that ship had a drag of 1 foot, the back had a drag of 7 feet. Okay, that means it could get down the river. The river stage at that time was 8 feet. It's now about 10 to 12 feet, but that was 8 feet. They had to get under the bridges, they had to get out the Ohio River and down the Mississippi. That's why they could build a shallow hull ship here. They can't build any other big ships with big hulls. They had to build them on the coast. So that's a fantastic invention. They were called cornfield ships. We made it here 167, more than anywhere in the United States. They made about 1,100 in World War II. And we made more than any other factory in World War II. And they were done well. International Steel and Mesker Steel helped make the steel for these things. That probably helped us get the contracts. That contract was signed in about February, on Valentine's Day of 42. The war happened and started about 2 months before. We already signed a contract, and they had ships coming out of there in the fall. Chrysler had the signature a little sooner than that. The next picture... before I leave the LST, my dad was on that for 4 years, one of those ships. They would take those ships, they'd go down to New Orleans, and then they'd put radios on them, radar, and all kinds of other things. Then they'd go test drive them out in the Caribbean. He said he hit a typhoon. He's never been so scared in his life. They'd bang them around. He thought he was going to die. What happened, they hit a typhoon, I'm sure, and they had jeeps on it. You got to tie everything down on this ship. If you don't tie it down, that jeep's coming across, and it'd smash you. He said it was the scariest time ever in his life. Then they went through the Panama Canal, then went over to the Battle of Okinawa. If you think about that ship, it's like a great big outfit. If you think of Wright's Bow, you know, some of your West Siders, but think Wright Bow, you can put 3 ships in Wright's Bow on a football field. These ships are 50 feet wide. A football field is 150 feet wide. So you put 3 ships in their football field long. So you put 3 LSTs in Wright's Bow. If you just think of that, that's how big those ships were. They were flat bottom boats, so you got seasick on them all the time. Guys, there's one guy in Evansville, and he said, I never want to get on that again. I was on it for 3 years in the Navy, and he said I was seasick the whole time. And he won't get on it. He hates those ships. But deep hull ships, you don't get quite as seasick. The fantastic part about that ship is it could hold about 15 Sherman tanks, hold a lot of men. Front of the bow would open up and let you win the war with tanks. You can't win the war with little guns or bullets, but you can win them with tanks. So that's what helped win the war. And if you look at the famous time of D-Day at Normandy, those things landed on a beach, and the tide changed 27 feet that time. So those things were dry, and then 12 feet later they were pulling them out to sea. In Italy, where we had 2 invasions, it wasn't a friendly beach. In Okinawa, where Dad was, it was not a friendly beach. It was all coral reef, and he was stuck on a coral reef for 24 hours for kamikazes coming out. So it was not fun in Okinawa. You see that beach in Normandy, and that was a friendly beach. Most beaches weren't that friendly. There were some over in the Westpac that were friendly, but not many. Okay, the reason that's important, we had 19,000 employees at the LST factory. You know our biggest factory now is maybe Toyota at 5,000. We got St. Mary's Deacons, 5,000. That's 15,000 employees. They had 19,000 people in that place, 24 hours around the clock. They had 2 entries. If you remember Roberts Stadium, you had about 10 turnstiles coming to get tickets. You had to go through a turnstile because they had to check your ID every morning. And they had it on Ohio Street and one other street, the only place you could get in that factory. Now, there's a book called Valhalla, and there's a lady you probably read it, written by Mr. Wicker, Michael Wicker. You heard of him, he's a rights teacher, but he wrote a book about some lady who was a spy. She'd sit on Henderson, she'd swim over and take pictures. She was a friend of Eva Braun, the mistress of Hitler, and they said she'd send stuff back to him because Hitler wanted to know what these things were. And she'd hang around Dogtown, and she lived on top of Knotty Pine. We just toured Knotty Pine. She lived on top of Knotty Pine. She had a German accent. They finally figured her out, and she got scared. She jumped off the Ohio River Bridge. They thought she died. She didn't die. She was a world-class swimmer. She just swam the shore, and she was fine. Then she went and did the same thing in Cincinnati. That's what his books say. I'm not trying to tell you about his book. Go buy it anyway. But he's going to talk at one of our meetings on June 25th, and all of you are welcome. They'll sell you tickets if you'd like it. Now, the second picture there. If anybody's tired, we got more chairs. I don't want you standing. Okay? We got chairs in this place. We'll bring more down. That's FDR. FDR is there. Remember, he was crippled, and he's he's in a car, and he's driving it through Republic Aviation. He's got a little model plane there. In 1943, he took a tour of the United States, 7,800 miles, 7,000 by train and 8,000 by car. And he started in Washington, D.C. and went all the way down south through Georgia and Florida, and then all the way up west Arizona, and up to Denver and that area, and then came back here, and he ended up, before he ended, he came through here. And he'd go on by train, 35 miles an hour. A guy named Millen, some of you probably know him, he was a conductor of that train at that time, and he drove him 35 miles an hour. He would not go any faster. But FDR knew that it was important to get these factories going. What won World War II? 3 things. Men and women that were in the service. 15 million of them were in the service. 15 million. When I was in active duty, we were at the build-up at most at Reagan 19. We had 2 million in active duty. 15 million. Can you believe that? The second thing that won it is logistics and all the machinery. What Bucyrus made, what all these things. We just overpowered them with more and more machines. You can't beat them with cap gun. You can't beat them hand-to-hand combat. You have to beat them machines. And logistics. Look at all this. How could you even manage 19,000 employees down there? Unbelievable to manage that. Next picture. Next picture is that came out of the museum of Evansville Museum, and we blew it up, and the resolution was all right. That's a picture of Republic Aviation Factory. We made 6,200 planes. We made one every 2.5 hours in Evansville. One every 2.5 hours. Can you believe how complex a plane is? That was our max. We put 10 out a day of these P-47. That's amazing. We'd make the wings at Briggs and also Cervell, and we'd get the engines from Ford, and we'll show you the engine out in the hangar. But it's amazing to do that. There were 7,000 employees registered. The contract was approved on March of 1942, the contract, and they had things coming off the line by the end of the year. Henry Ford said he could do everything better, and the Ford company went out to California. They made B-24s in California, and they made one every 6 hours. And he said, I can do it better. So he went up to Willow Park and made a factory up there called Willow Park, and they made B-24s. They made one an hour. They had 40,000 employees there. We had 7,000. We made one every 2.5 hours. This plane was not as big as a B-24, but look at what we did in Evansville. We didn't know how to make planes, but we sure learned how. Yes. This company came from Republic Aviation. Republic Aviation was in Farmingdale, New York, and they were told by Congress, you got to make more planes. So they didn't want to come to Evansville. So they first went to a place called Suffolk. They said no. They went next to LaGuardia. We don't have enough room for you. They finally came here. So our mayor was dressed in, and Boehning was a big man. Ruthenberg was a big man. Those people somehow got these 3 big contracts, and how they ever got these 3 big contracts, I don't know. But they got this plane here. We had a long enough runway. Suffolk didn't have a long enough runway. We had a 4,000 or 4,000 foot runway. They had to extend it a little bit, but that's why we got the plane here. And we made those planes here. Republic Aviation was probably one of the founders of modern aviation in the United States. And they still have a plant up there in Farmingdale, and we just visited them, and they have one of those P-47s there that flies. P-47, we'll talk about it later, but it's an amazing plane. It's a big sucker. All the fighter planes in World War II weighed about 9,000 pounds. The Zero, the Messerschmitt, the thing from England. What's the one from England? got a name for it.
Spitfire.
Yeah, Spitfire. Okay, they're all about 9,000, 10,000 pounds. This baby's 17,000 pounds. They called it a fighter, but it was a fighter and a bomb. It did two things. But this thing had the pilots all came back because this is air cooled. All the other planes, all the other fighter planes in World War II were water cooled. So you hit one bullet in there, and you're damned. You got to be a glider then. This thing, the biggest hero took 200 bullets, and he still came back flying. 3 pistons gone. That baby can fly because it's air cooled, not water cooled. Amazing invention. They called it a jug. They called it a tank. I don't
Here,
care.
take
No,
a
I'm
break.
ready.
I want to say something.
Okay.
You gotta cool off. Now you know what's behind this. Mark has been real good to us. We started talking this 5 years ago at our meetings, that we would like to display our stuff. And we went to different museums and we just couldn't get in. So now we finally got our foot in the door, and he's really helped us with it. And it'll grow and grow and grow. So, you got your breath back? Okay.
He's saying I can't talk. There's a guy named, he's talking at our conference on June 20, not Bob, but the guy named Frank Duncan. I don't know if you know him, but he works at Hillsdale Nursery. He's 93. And I went and interviewed him about a month ago. And he never quit talking for 2.5 hours. I didn't give him water or anything else. He kept on going. He's the most interesting guy in World War II. He was in the Battle of Lady. He is interesting. If you ever hear him, but we're going to have him at our conference. This guy can go on, but he is a very good speaker. Okay. Now, we got another picture. I know you're not going to look at pictures, but I'm going to tell you what else is in here. But right there's another one. That's a tank. That's a Sherman tank. And Chrysler was unbelievable. That got our first contract in January of 42. That was our blockbuster. They made bullets, and they refurbished those tanks. A tank is 70,000 pounds. Your car out there might be 5,000 or 7,000 pounds. That's 10 times heavier than your car. And they refurbished it. These trainees would break them and do everything. They were training them. They bring them here to Chrysler and they fix them. And they got a big track there. It's still part of the track. It's over by the old North High School. And I'll show you other pictures where you see where Escalade Sports is. And that's where they made also 3 billion bullets. And that was a 45 bullets. They made a 500,000 30 caliber bullets for the rifle, for the M1 rifle. 96% of the bullets in World War II were made right here in Evansville at the Chrysler plant. And not many people know that. 96%. And everybody had and if you stretch those bullets around, they're about that long, you stretch around the world 3 times. That's how many bullets. That's 75,000 miles of bullets. If I started making bullets in the Revolutionary War, I'd still be making them at 100 bullets a day, and I'd just be done now. That's how many bullets are made here in Evansville. Okay, now there's a P-47 plane there that was given to us. It's a rendition of one, and we'll show a little more P-47s. And right over Pat Doris's head is the blueprints of Republic Aviation, and there's another print of Republic Aviation there. Can you pull that picture off the wall and bring it to me? Somebody.
Which one?
That big nice one there. That one, that Freedom Heritage was in, that one. Okay, now, before I talk about that, I'm gonna talk about what's in these containers here. Now, we've got a guy on the board now that's gonna be a cabinet maker. He's as good a woodworker, I think, as this guy here, Cressy.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he's gonna make us a bunch of cabinets in here, and we're gonna fill it up with Bucyrus stuff and everything else. But we've got 2 cabinets from Wabash over there. That one's all from a pilot from P-47. That's a silk map, and it's all his memoirs of World War II, and he's a P-47 pilot. The cabinet behind there has a pilot in there called Stanley. And if you ever remember, there was Stanley Close downtown. That son, he died about 1969, but he's a World War II pilot for a C-47 plane. So that's all his memorabilia there. Bring one of those books up there. We got a book on top there. Bring that back to me. Bring that to me. Just one of them. Don't break it. Yeah. Okay, now that book, we were given that by the Baptist Church downtown, right across from Baptist Hospital. This was sitting in their file cabinet for the last 50 or actually 65 years. These are letters from warriors in World War II. There's 150 different warriors that wrote back to Reverend Rake. Reverend Rake was famous. He had a red tie, and he sort of shook the town whenever he did. Everybody loved Reverend Rake. And he wrote to all these soldiers, and they wrote back to him. We've scanned every one of these letters, and they're up on the internet now for you to read. And it was just in their closet. and we're making our church proud of all their warriors. There's a guy named Robert working in here. There's all kinds of interesting stories. Somebody, all kinds of, so many stories you wouldn't believe. None of those were censored. Everything World War II was censored. None of those were censored. So we got them up on the internet. Okay, this was created by a local company here, but this little red thing here, this is what Bucyrus got. Not this blue part, but this little red part. That's called an E award. Evansville was given, to get an E award, you wear a little tag on your shirt like that. It'd be real little and fit right on there. But that was the E award, not this part, but this part. The E award was given to only 4% of factories in the United States in World War II. 4%. Evansville got 26 E awards. 14 different plants got E awards. 14 different plants. We were a working place. Unbelievable to get those many awards. Think that. Only 4% got an award. We got 26 of them here. So that's what it symbolizes. These are basic colors. That was very popular in World War II. Red, very basic. Blue, black, or blue, red, and white. A little bit of black there. Laurel leaf and oak leaf symbolize power. And this is what people would have on them. And they were proud of that because they were proud workers. We don't want to just memorialize the troops. If you go down the old courthouse, we have 353 people on a plaque there. They're the ones that were killed in action. They gave the ultimate sacrifice. But those were from Vanderbilt County. That percentage is 0.3% of the population. Same 0.3% of the population in the United States that got killed in World War II. But if you go to Russia, 13% were killed. You go to China, 5%, but 13% were killed. In Civil War, our worst war ever, about 2.8% were killed. It was decimated families. You don't think Russia was decimated? If we wouldn't have stopped these people, we would have been decimated too. But we'd have had 13% loss. Because once they get the civilians, they start really hurting you because you have no defense. So this big thing here, that's a cowling of a P-47. Cowling's the front part of the engine, and we will show you some of that. All engines are round, most of the cowlings. This one is like an egg shape, and that's very unique to that because it had more air coming in the bottom. And those are basic colors, and that's our symbol because we want to symbolize not just the P-47, we want to symbolize all the work that was done here in Evansville before this next generation. We see some youngsters here. We want more youngsters here to pay attention to this stuff. We want more youngsters because we've got to educate what they did in a 3 to 4 year period of time. It is an amazing feat that happened in this city, and we don't want anybody to forget. Okay, now why don't we go, give me 2 other pictures off the wall over there. Give me the picture with the pilot in the center, and give me the picture with the governor in the center, and give me the other picture. Give 3 pictures off the wall, and just leave them on the floor there after you get done. And then we're going to go to the hangar in just a minute. We got Bucyrus here, and we're getting to Bucyrus, and don't worry. But we're talking about all the other industry in Evansville, and I've only hit about 5 out of 330 products we've been talking about so far. So here's another picture. Okay, we'll put it right here. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay, this is what we want to brag about. This is a P-47. These are 2 P-47s. There's only 7 left flying in the world right now. These 2 came from, got a music here. There's 2 made, these 2 came from Tennessee. Paul Allen has one out in he's a friend of Bill Gates. He's got a little bit of money. And so he's got one out there, and I keep calling, they won't even talk to me. They only fly that 300 miles. They won't loan it to us. But that's 3 of them. There's 2 down in Texas. There's 1 in New Jersey for sale. There's 1 in Farmingdale where the original plant was. These babies are monsters. You see that prop? That prop is 6 feet. It's 6 feet here, 6 feet here. It's 12 feet. Those props are gigantic. They tried with 3. They had to have 4 to get enough propulsion. These are 2 pilots that flew it here 2 summers ago. We had a reenactment on the riverfront 2 summers ago. LST Higgins boat. And we just had a movie out called the E movie about that. But we had about 20 plus veterans of World War II up on the top of the Old National Bank. And you're invited there this year. We're going to do the same thing this year. And they saw the reenactment. And then these 2 P-47s flew by that bank. And they were close. And they were loud. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place. I could have heard a pin drop. It brought back emotions of World War II that you wouldn't believe when you heard that big, loud engine. Because those people lived in this area when these engines were going all around here. Yes, sir.
Those down in Galveston at the museum in Galveston, Texas, where those 2 guys, where those 2 are at, they fly in October when they at Ellington Field when they have that reenactment of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Those guys fly.
I've seen them fly.
I had a guy come here today, and he's been down to that museum, and it's a beautiful museum. They have these two planes down there, and these are relics. They are very much relics. They tried to give it to the school system here, and they didn't want it. These are gas guzzlers. I'll go show you a carburetor. They only take, and when it's full power, they only take 5 gallons a minute. So it's 3,300 gallon tanks, so in 1 hour you're out of gas. And that was part of the problem in World War II. They sucked that gas up. You know, so that was a problem. They couldn't get long distance. They put other tanks on the bottom. Yeah, you wanted to say something? Say, yeah. You want
That was
real loud, real loud.
about 90, went over our house back then. Talking about a noise.
Oh, they were loud. They were loud. You heard them all the time when you were a kid. Okay, this is a print by a guy named Ken Wilson. I go to his house, I go down to his basement. A couple guys here have been to his basement, I think, but this guy's only been working on the history of P-47 for 45 years. 45 years? He knows everything. He knows what happened to every plane that came out of this plant. Now he drew this. This is vellum. It's a real nice sort of silk, and he drew it with a diamond head pen. And he's made 47 of these, and this is we got in the museum. And he's writing a book. He's been writing a book, and the front cover of the book has one of the other P-47s at the Smithsonian. It's only flown from here to somewhere else in the Smithsonian. It was made there. But this is a tremendous print. And Ken Wilson's probably our #1 historian. He doesn't already talk very often. He won't let me video him, and he won't let me
Them 90,
release much.
90 was treetop level that came over.
Three what?
They were treetop level.
Treetop. Yeah, they're pretty low. They're
Now, we
flying
saw
low.
them, and that's what I remember the papers said there were 90 of them.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 crashes around here with the P-47. Okay, now, this is called Indiana Warbird. This is the governor. You heard of Governor Pence? That's our governor now. I know everybody knew who he was, but that's Governor Pence. He's right down there, signing next to this yellow plane here. And we got a few other politicians and several Rosie Riveters there. But he signed in law. I thought that was an easy job. Oh my God, we had to work on that about 5 months to get this passed because a bunch of guys didn't agree with it. This is called the Indiana Warbird. The P-47 is your Indiana Warbird, signed into law. It was signed in June or so of last year to say it's the only warbird made in Indiana. And there's only 4 other states that have warbirds named after them. So the P-47 is called the Indiana Warbird. So we have to have P-47 out in that hangar, and we got to get it here in the near future. So people between 70 and 90 can hear that sound and bring memories up of what was going on here in 1940. Okay, now we have bring that last picture over there from all the way to the end. That one right, Jim, all the way to the end. That one. No, all the way to the end. Those 2 yellow planes. Because I got to show what we did last summer. I'm going to show you these 2 yellow planes. One of them is Pat Doris and another one. Those are the trainer planes. But in between that plane is a C-47. Now a C-47, we had one here this summer. It barely fit in that hangar. It's a wide plane. It was also made in Douglas airplane plant in Santa Monica. And my wife and I visited there not too long ago. It's got a son living there. But this is a C-47. This big baby right here. That'll hold 19 paratroopers. And it's a smooth ride, but it only goes about 110, 120 miles an hour. So you're sitting stuck. So at D-Day, on 4 days around D-Day, 50,000 paratroopers jumped out. There's only 19 that go out of this plane. So that was a lot of traffic up there in those 4 days. Think of all those paratroopers. It's a smooth plane, but you got to have a lot of fighters around it protected because it's a sitting duck. This is a C-47. The C-46, a little bit bigger plane, flew the hump. And there's a guy in town named Brinker, and he flew the hump. The hump was from Indy to China. If you remember that guy that, what was the guy that flew the planes that attacked Tokyo or attacked Japan back in 1942 right after the war? Doolittle. So Doolittle, they had a bunch of planes that went off a carrier, dropped bombs in Japan, but then they wanted to land in China. So this is what was called the hump. They were bringing gas from India to China, so these guys would have gas to get out of there. But the hump, we had a lot of C-46s. That's a bigger plane than what I just showed you. C-47 carried troops. They made 10,000 in World War II. 9,000 were for civilian use, 9,000 for military use. 1,000 for civilian, 9,000 for the other. Okay, now, any questions before we go out to the big hangar? I'm glad you brought some kids here too. They need to know this. And my dad taught me to be a patriot. I kept listening to him. Patriotism is so important. We have the best and the nicest country in the world. And we have to protect it. We have to tell our kids that how it's important. And they're gonna listen to parents, they're gonna listen to aunts and uncles, they're gonna listen to grandparents, they're gonna listen to more anybody else. You're the ones that are the people that are gonna convince kids to pay attention and to know what Evansville did in World War II. But the more important, to protect our freedom. Our freedom is so nice. Until you go live in another country, until you go experience some other things, our infrastructure is the best you can get. And that's important for when you leave here. Just tell those youngsters like back there how important freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of writing, freedom of everything is. And you don't get it in other countries. And since 9/11, our freedoms have been more and more minimized. And they're going to keep getting more constricted. You have lived in the golden time of freedom. And the golden time is going to be less and less and less. Yes.
Have you thought about?
Loud enough, loud enough.
Have you thought about doing an educational video for PBS or for EBSC, and so that they can look at it in their history classes?
We met with University of Evansville yesterday. We met with the chairman of Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith, the chairman of EBSC yesterday with the movie we just made.
Yeah.
So they're informed. We're going to USI next week. We're going to Ivy Tech the week after.
Right.
We're informing them. But they said, well, kids don't pay attention all the time. And he said, we can't get the kids to show up. And those are things where, that's passive learning.
Yeah.
We want active learning. We want kids out here working on some of the things we have. We want active learning. I think that's a new wave as opposed to them sitting on a computer all day long. But what you're saying, that would show them what happened, but then we've got to really have a follow-up with that as opposed to just planting a seed.
Right.
We've got to have a way that they can grow. But I think that we're starting on that. But Evansville has to wake up to what they did 70 years ago. Or it's going to be an archaeological study as opposed to a history study where we still have things in garages that we can show. Okay, now we've got a lot of people, so we're going to go out in the hangar, and I'm going to have my help and some, if you're strong, I want you to bring 2 or 3 chairs with you at a time, because we had another 2 and people were mad because we didn't have enough chairs. I got some chairs upstairs. We're going to go in the center of the hangar, and we're going to go around and tell you everything out there. So, and there's water and cookies out there. Those kids don't like cookies. I know. Okay. All right, we're going outside.
Did you hear that? Yes.
Oh, I'm in trouble already. I'm in trouble. Oh, man. Technologically, that's the first time I could show them something. Okay. Usually I'm told what to do. And I'm smart enough to know to do what you're told. Where's those youngsters? She's going to be ordering somebody around. There's a kid around here. He's going to be ordered around. Okay. This is a hangar. That's where we were. This is the nicest hangar at the airport. This is a Bristol Myers hangar. Then it was a Barry Plastics hangar, and now it's a Freedom Heritage hangar. And we have it on loan for 5 years. It's $1 a year. But we're in jeopardy. After 5 years, they may not extend it, but we think we got another 5 years, so we got it for 10 years. It's the best and nice hangar on the place. And we're trying to remodel it and not spend too much money on it. And we want to put something on the highway down here. We have land. We have 3 acres down there that we've made something that touches the airport. Because we want to have flying airplanes that can come here and visit from other places so kids learn about that. We want to do simulators so kids learn about flying. Flying started, I think, 1903 with the Wright brothers, so we're 110, 100 plus years of flying, and kids have to learn more about it. Most of the thing that stops a kid from learning is expense. It's just expensive to learn to fly, but there's things called simulators, other things that we could maybe get them to learn a lot about it without getting them in a plane. But those are things we're going to try to initiate here in the near future. Okay, this is a hangar, and we've got a hangar. We'll hang some older planes maybe up from the top, but we're going to try to have real planes in here. We're going to try to give people, give them flights, take them other places. There's a thing called Commemorative Air Force out of Texas. They've been here 2 different times, brought other planes up here and give people rides. But we're not here to talk about rides. We're here to talk about airplanes. So, how many stars on that flag? 48, okay. You got a 49 star flag, we'd like to have it. I don't know there's very many of those, but that's a 48 star. And there's a lot of 50 stars, but not many 48, or not many 48, not many 49. But anyway, that symbolizes the time. During World War II, we had 48 states. This plane here is not a World War II replica. This came out in 46 because they had to have people looking for submarines. This is called a tailor-made. We do own it. It's a tailor-made, and it was spying for submarines, and it's a 1946 model. It's got cloth here, and or fiber that's made of, they call it Old Yellow. This plane is Don Coolinson's plane. You saw the news the other week. It's 26 feet wide. I had to measure because we went down Diamond Avenue, in the rain. And we had more fanfare than ever saw. Every plane landed here. This one had to go down the highway, and all 2 trucks ahead of us, 2 trucks behind us, and these kids were watching. But he hadn't flown about 3 or 4 years, so it had to be what you call annualized. We couldn't get by to annualize it, so we had to drive it here. Feller Truck Lines brought it here. We got to the airport, we couldn't get in. There's no gate that's bigger than 26 feet, so we had to pick it up and move it over the fence. Can you believe that number here, 26 feet? So that's 26 feet wide, I know for sure. We had to get over all the mailboxes and everything else. So, but he made that. That's handmade. He was a World War II pilot. I said that he got moved out at about Battle of the Bulge, 1944. That's made of stuff called spruce. And I've got all the plans right here on the other wall here. But he had to bend that. It took him only 8 years to make it. Who's got the patience to work on 8 years? He worked on it for many hours every day. He's on the west side. He's got west side work ethic. Okay. So big engine, Lycoming engine, about 106 horsepower. It's an experimental plane, but he gave it to us, and the thing's made out of spruce. So if you think of Howard Hughes had a spruce goose, the spruce goose is a football field wide. A football field wide. Okay, 300 feet wide, 4 engines on each side, about 4,600 cc's on each engine. Our Republic Aviation plane, the P-47, has a 2,800 cc engine. So he had 4 planes with twice the size on each wing to raise that baby up. They only flew about a mile out in the water, called the spruce goose. But they thought we were going to run out of metal, so he made it out of wood. But Howard Hughes had a little deeper pocket than most people. He could do a lot of things. But this made out of spruce. His spruce goose is 98% birch. It's only 2% spruce, but they call it spruce goose. Okay, this is the Higgins boat. The Higgins boat, they made 20,000 in World War II. This was made 1966, so it's not an original. There's not any originals left that I know of. This is metal on the side. On a real original Higgins boat, the only metal he had was this boat. So as soon as they unloaded that, those bullets are coming at you. You come down to D-Day, and you open that up, and you don't think you're scared to death, because if those Germans can shoot you, they can get you. You're just a sitting duck. Hold 36 men on 1 Jeep, so they call it Landing Craft LCVP, Vehicle Personnel. So vehicle means 1 Jeep or personnel, or some type of, it doesn't have to be Jeep, it could be other things. LVCP. They could have hanged 6 of those on the side of an LST. So 36 men at each one of them, 100 on each side. So 36 in each ship, that would be about 100. So 200 men off to the shore. This, you can't get those big ships in. Even the LST you couldn't get in out in the west very easily. So they put them on these ships. They only have about a 3-foot draft. They go about 10 miles an hour. We have a 240 horsepower engine on them. Made of wood. Now, Higgins made millions of dollars down in New Orleans. There's the Higgins Ambrose Museum in New Orleans, the best World War II museum in the world. One half is the World War II in Europe, one half is in the Pacific. It's the best museum you ever see. But Higgins, about 1940, Congress came in, about 6 congressmen on the side of Lake Pontchartrain. Lake Pontchartrain is 27 miles diameter, north of New Orleans, but they got these steps, these concrete steps on one shore. And he ran that thing full force, 10 miles an hour, right into those steps, right up! And those congressmen about had a fit. But that boat stayed together. And they said, this is what you need. That's what you need at Dunkirk. That's what you need to invade France, Germany, whatever. You need this ship. So they made 20,000. And some people say that won the war. I say the LST won the war. I say the P-47 won the war. But this is a big part of the war. Everything is part of the war. There's a diagram of the ship right there. We have that hanging on the side. That's a person made an LST. That's a diagram of it. Later on, you can go look. We got a box that how they invaded the shore and some tanks coming off. You see the Davids holding the 3 Higgins boats. They had 40 millimeter guns on the side. My dad was on this for 4 years. Not this one, but something similar to that. And very instrumental in World War II. We had that on loan. That's a big trailer. We brought it in here about a month ago. We're going to turn our chairs around and we'll talk about the other side. And then we're going to go to your Bucyrus room. Okay, I know it's long to get to that, but we're leaving the finale at the end. Turn 180 degrees. 180 degrees here. are not very comfortable. You get on a car today, those things, I get in those things, they're miserable to ride. But they were nice when you had nothing but legs. So it was nice. 1939, we made 1,000 Gs. 1940, 1,000 Gs. Between 42 and 45, we made 600,000 Gs. Half Willys and half Fords. We got one Ford and one Willys set. One's worth $39,000, one's worth $29,000. They're starting to go up in value, but they made a lot of them. The P-47s, even though we made 14,000, there's not many left. There's more Willys and Ford Jeeps left. But you get in them, they're not very comfortable. We drive them around town, but they were nice then. You're used to some shocks. Okay. We have a lot of paraphernalia. They had guns on the side and other things, but they're pretty basically made. Henry Ford wanted to have the same parts for everything. He didn't want to be missing parts, and parts were an important part. You had to repair things. Okay, the next thing over there, the desk is in front of it, so maybe who got the strong to push that desk over, because they can see the frame. Two of these strong men over here. That young guy here, 2 or 3 more. Just push that desk that way so we can see what that engine over there. If you don't mind, just push it towards don't hit that yellow plane. Oh, push it towards the G. The G is cheaper than the plane. Push it towards the G. Okay, now what I want you to see is that engine. That engine is 2,800 cc's, 2,000 horsepower. Your engine outside is 10 times more than that. All it had to do is lift up 17,000 pounds. Okay, now, that, if you look at that, the carrier there, that was made at Faultless Caster. Faultless Caster also made a lot of things in World War II, but they made that was set on railroad tracks and ran through the factory at Republic Aviation. But if you look at a lot of factories today even, they have those yellow tracks, and you can see the railroad casters there, and that's what the engines were on. These are heavy engines, so the engine had to roll down. They put it finally in the plane after the plane was made. And that's the plane, that's the engine. It's 2,800 cc's. If you look at it, there's 9 cylinders on the front, and there's another 9 cylinders. That plane over there, we're talking about, men only has 9 cylinders. This one has 18 cylinders. So this baby could lift 17,000 pounds. All the fighters in World War II could only lift about 9,000 to 10,000 pounds. This thing could keep up with them speed-wise. 400, 420 miles an hour, just as fast as the others. Not quite as flexible. On down, it was the fastest when it went down. Going plus 400 miles down. It was faster than that coming from high altitude down. So, heck of an engine, heck of a dependable engine. The main thing about it, it's air-cooled. All the other ones were water-cooled. So when you get bullets, it's a problem. That's the SNJ, or the trainer plane. It made about 3,000 to 4,000 World War II. We sent off about 1,300 to Canada to train those people, and we kept the others here. That's Pat Dorsey's plane, and you see that's a cage up on top. Hoosier Cardinal changed the cage to a bubble top on the P-47. Hoosier Cardinal was a major inventor of plastics. It's over on First Avenue. It's still got a smokestack over it that says Hoosier Cardinal. A guy named Martin was one of the fathers of plastics. Evansville is also considered one of the homes of plastics. Partly because this guy named Martin that knew about everything. Tom Martin built the bubble tops on a lot of planes, B-24 and the P-47. But that cage that was on the P-47 like that, the pilots couldn't see behind it very well, so they changed it to a bubble top. That, every pilot in World War II trained in a plane like that. The pilot got in the front seat and the trainer got in the back seat. They first went with the steerman. That was a double wing plane, and a guy named Bazal has the steerman back here. You see it's a sort of a slow plane. They learn in that plane, then they go to this, and that's a big jump. This was a big jump. This is a powerful plane that pulls you to the right because it has such a torque with a rotary engine. It pulls the engine right, so you have to have your rudder going to the left as you're taking off. Again, you can't see anything. P-47 is worse than that. When you're in there, you can't see anything. Until it gets up with momentum, you're not seeing anything. You're looking to the side trying to look at the runway because you don't know where you're going. If there's anything out front of you, you're going to run over. You can't see. Look at that. The pilot can't see anything. And the P-47 works. So you have to look on the side, just hoping everything was all right. Okay. Any questions about this part of it? Okay, we're going to go to Bucyrus room next. It's really small because we've got too many people. So Bucyrus room, we're going to roll through there, and I'll tell you what's in Bucyrus room before we get there, and then you can just mosey on through, because if I try to talk to you all in there, it's not going to happen, because we get claustrophobia. The Bucyrus room, we have on this wall, that would be the south wall, we have about 10 Scoop magazines up there. The Scoop was your main magazine. It communicated a lot, and we're gonna scan every one of those magazines like we scanned all those letters, and we're gonna scan all the photos. If you have a 25-year pen, a 20-year pen, a 15-year pen, your pictures are in there, and they're good pictures. They're professional pictures. Your ancestors, your aunts, your uncle, somebody will be in that book, and we're gonna scan them, make them available for internet. We're gonna scan the whole book. There we got Mr. Lynn gave me. He was your photographer. We can't find his son was here. I can't find any of his photographs. He was your official photographer, so we can't find any of that stuff. I did find, I got about 10 pictures that I'll show you of the original plant, but we've missed a lot of photographs of the plant. If you have any pictures of the plant, I'd like to have them to put them up in your room. But the Scoop, he gave us about 120 scoops, and it tells the whole history of Bucyrus Erie. Not just Evansville, but the other plants. The one in Erie, the one in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got a heck of a museum up there. And they got things where kids would like. They got the little track where the bulldozer goes around. They got tracks where they show how the cranes work. It's a little bit, you have a big museum, bigger than this, but it's a very nice museum up there. And we've asked them to loan some things, but right now they haven't loaned anything. But anyway, you got one wall full of the Scoop, and then that same wall, we found diagrams that said everything Bucyrus ever did. So you've got the genealogy of Bucyrus, you've got every thing you ever did. It's on one wall, but they're small, you got to get up close to it. Then the west wall, it has a Bucyrus Erie flag that's your 100th anniversary, 1884, 1984. Heck of a industry. You came here, I think, about 1914 or so. 14, stayed here till 84. But you were absent, I think, 32 to 35 or something. Because of the recession, I think there was a problem for 3 years with employees. Not you, but somebody. I don't think they had many workers there. Okay, that's that wall. And then the other wall, the same west wall, has 4 pictures up there. One of you making the Panama Canal. If you go to the Panama Canal, and you look at how the Panama Canal was made, it was the biggest engineering feat in the world in 1914. 3 other countries failed and the United States went through. If you dug a channel 10 feet wide, 10 feet deep, you'd go from New York City to LA. That's how much dirt they moved. And you guys knew how to move dirt in Bucyrus Erie. So the shovels were important. Out of the 240 heavy machinery products, Bucyrus made about 70 to 77. So you were a big part in making the Panama Canal. A big part. The other big part was killing the mosquitoes down there. That's why the other 3 countries couldn't get by, because they put oil on the top of the water so the larvae couldn't multiply, and that helped a lot. It was a much harder canal to make than the Suez Canal because it was uphill, it was muddy, terrible, terrible engineering feat. And it was just a fabulous feat. Bucyrus takes a lot of credit. So that's on one wall. The other, that same wall, that's the one this way, face west. You're moving the Plymouth Rock. Bucyrus Erie helped move Plymouth Rock. Then going around the wall, we start with making a machine that helped drill wells. You drill a lot of water wells, not as many oil wells, but a lot of water wells around here. And in war, whenever we conquered somewhere, we had to make water wells. You had to get water. Didn't have water, you're in trouble. Then around the east wall, we've got a bulldozer. If you look at the bulldozer is made by International Harvester. You made the shovel and you made the lift part of it, right, Bob?
The blade and the arm.
Blade and the arm.
Cylinder.
And the cylinder. So if you go to Port Hueneme, it's the biggest CB museum. Remember, CB started in 1942. It's in California, north of LA, about 40 miles. They have the biggest and best museum about CBs. They're the construction people. All stuff about Bucyrus in there. But in front of that big building that's about 3 times bigger than this, they have a bulldozer, International Harvester, Bucyrus blade, and in the back of the building, the only thing outside, great big blade, Bucyrus Erie. And that is a major construction. That's a very big compliment to you. So that bulldozer, you'll see that. And then another picture in there is a leveler, and it was on train tracks over by Wrights Hill, going down the train tracks from Howe, and you see a leveler with some rock and things. Then the room next to that, that's pretty much, and then we have a 88B given by Mrs. Shank, a temporary loan by Mrs. Shank. Roman Shank made it, and it's 88B. And that's an important shovel, and it shows you a little bit about what you made out of it. fabulous plan. Then in the next room, we've got some displays of Bucyrus Erie hat, books, and we've got 25-year pins, 15-year pins, 10-year pins. We got some cigarette ashtrays. We got some other memorabilia from Bucyrus. So I think you just got to mosey around through these 2 rooms. The plans of that plane are all in there, and you can look at these other 2 rooms and mosey around and get something to drink. And I'll go upstairs if anyone's interested in seeing upstairs. There's really mostly pictures of World War II up there, of what Evansville did. The only pictures I have that are important is those cranes somebody's talking about. There's still 1 crane left. At the LST plant, we had 12 cranes carrying all that heavy steel. 1's left and it's still down there. If you go look behind Bristol Myers, that 1 crane's still sitting there. And a guy named Steve Rettle, a friend of mine, has run that crane. But these 12 cranes, they all go by hand signals, moving all that heavy steel around. But there's 1 left there. We don't know if Bucyrus made that or not. I can't figure it out. Bob tried to figure it out. I don't know. But maybe it made it, maybe it didn't. But there's no name on it. Upstairs, the other thing we have upstairs is a picture of the P-47. Once a P-47 was made in this blue building down here, they would come out of the hangar, and then the next thing they had to do is they had to check the brakes, make sure you had brakes. And the next thing they did, they checked the magnet. You had to check the magnet to make sure the compass was all right. Then the third thing they did was check the bullets. You had 4 guns on each side. They were Browning 50 caliber. Now, the power of the Browning 50 caliber was pretty strong. And I'll tell you exactly how strong. And so they checked the sidings on that. And they checked against a hill right behind Whirlpool there. So they had a hill there, and that was just full of lead. And they filled that full of lead to make sure the guns were right. Then they get the ferry pilot to take it all somewhere else. Now, the power of that P-47, if it's usually going 300 miles an hour or so, it can stop, it can turn a locomotive over, a train over. The power, I see a few trucks out here, it's like your truck, a 150 going 60 miles an hour. That's how powerful it is when you're shooting all 4 guns at one time. When I pull the trigger, they're 50 caliber bullets. When I pull the trigger, all the bullets are gone in 23 seconds. So you don't pull it too long. And then it was very effective in World War II in hitting trains, tanks with that. We also put bombs on the bottom of it, 1,000-pound bombs, and they dropped those bombs and break bridges, and Hitler's supply line was annihilated. If you read the book by O'Reilly on Patton, he says the Thunderbolt was the most important thing in World War II. The reason he said it, because Patton was trying to get up north, and the Thunderbolts were just tearing up Hitler's tanks, tearing Hitler's supply line. It is a powerful machine. They put rockets on the side of it as well. The rockets didn't work out too well. But dropping the bombs was pretty important. There's a guy living in Evansville that I eat breakfast with some. He was in the New Jersey plant. They trained the P-47 pilots there. And what they were trained to do, he was at the target, and the pilot didn't know they were there, and he was dropping these bombs. You know, they were fake bombs in, but they yelled, he got out of it, but the guy next to him used some foul language because he was upset. And I think I would have too probably. But they practiced. And the irony is that type of bombing is what the Japanese did to our battleship role in Hawaii. But they learned that from what happened. England did that to the Italian ships in the Mediterranean in 1939 and 40. It's dropping a bomb from a plane, but you have to be pretty accurate. It's not easy. You got to drop it at the right time. You can't drop it at the wrong time. P-47s were actually bombers as well as fighters. And those guns are powerful. The guns on 1,000 pounds of bullets on this side, 1,000 pounds. Each gun had 250 bullets. So about 10 bullets per second, 23 seconds for a whole round of bullets. So fabulous history in Evansville. Fabulous. Fabulous you're part of it. And a lot of you have remembrances of your aunts, your uncle, friends were part of this World War II thing. And if we wouldn't have done what we did, it'd be like Russia. 13% of the population. That's just about a genocide. 13%. Because if they'd gotten over here, a lot of you wouldn't be here. I might not be here. If we wouldn't drop the bomb in Japan, my dad wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here. That bomb in Japan probably saved 500,000 to a million people in the United States. Japanese, and the vote I think was 9 days. It wasn't a clear-cut vote when they said they were giving up. And if we'd had to go on their soil, it was done. Just like when the Revolutionary War, when they came on our soil, we were like it's backwoods, and they couldn't beat us on our own soil. It's hard to beat a country on their own soil. We've seen in Afghanistan, you've seen in Iraq, you've seen in those places. It's hard to beat them on their own soil. Okay, we're glad you came. We have a function on June 25th, the top of the Old National Bank. We've had it the last 2 years. We're having it this year. We're having the best speakers in the world there. There's 4 speakers, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. The session will be in the morning. Matt Quicker's talking. He's one of the better authors about World War II and Valhalla. And the next speaker is going to be, that's in the morning. And the one other speaker in the morning is Frank Duncan. Frank Duncan was on a battleship Pennsylvania. It carried half the atom bomb and went over to World War II. Half of it was on the Indianapolis, half was on his ship. And Johnny Carson was on his ship with him. And he had a lot of good stories. Johnny Carson would get on the PA system and he'd say, the captain laid down on the PA system. He got out of high school in South America. He quit high school in South America. Don't listen to that. He didn't, don't quit yet. He'd say, we got, he'd imitate Johnny Carson, or Johnny Carson imitate FDR. We got, hello, Drew. This is FDR. We got 2 problems in the world. We got the war, and we got element. And I would rather face the war. He would rather face the war than element. Okay, but that was, and so this guy's going to talk. In the afternoon, we got 2 World War II veterans from here. A guy named Ray Clayton. He was on the LST 157, the very first one out of Evansville, and he was in 3 D-Days. 2 in Italy and 1 in Normandy. He's going to talk. The other one's going to talk with him is a P-47 pilot. His picture was out there. We showed a little gray-headed guy. His name's Alan Sanderson, working spring leave, and he's a P-47 pilot with 118 sorties. Out there, I'd say 220 sorties, so I got to change it. It's 118. And then the last person talking is Harold Morgan, and Harold Morgan's probably we owe Harold Morgan a ton. Every time I go to the library, he's coming out. He goes to every library the last 20 years and taking copies of pictures. He's got several books, but he's memorialized World War II. Many, a lot of information like this from Harold Morgan. He's an amazing historian. He ain't even a history teacher, but he's better than most. Dr. McLeod from UV has just written a book, and a lot of people have seen it. So people are resurrecting, but you need to tell your kids. You need to tell your family. We need to participate. We'd like to be part of this. We could use volunteers. We use participants. You could be docents. We'll teach you how to teach all this stuff. I'd love to have you part of it. So we'll walk through the Bucyrus.
Mark, can I just a little more information?
Louder.
Yeah, just a little more information about the event he's talking about. It's on June 25th. We have the top floor of the Old National Bank, and if anybody's ever been up there, it's a fabulous view, all windows overlooking the river. It's beautiful. We have 2 sessions. He mentioned 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. The morning session includes lunch and 2 drink tickets, beer or wine. Of course, we have sodas as well. The afternoon session includes sandwiches and snacks and the drinks as well. Tickets are $15 per person for each session. Free parking in the Old National Bank garage as well. So if you're interested, let us know. We have tickets.
Any questions before Bob takes over? Any other questions? Thank you for your being here. Thanks.
Let's give him a hand, please. I think he's an expert on it. There's a couple of things I'd like to bring up. First of all, the model that you see in there made by Roman Shank. I'd like for his wife and children and everyone's here with the Shank stand up. The second thing, we've been talking about this for 5 years at our meetings. We meet twice a year. Any of you that haven't been coming to the meetings, it's on the 3rd Saturday in November and the 3rd Saturday in April. If you're not on the mailing list, let me have your name and address, but most of you, I think, have been there. We'll keep you updated. Now, if you come up with some items, get a hold of me or get a hold of Mark, but you'd sooner get a hold of me because he's still working and I can help you out with them and we'll get them in the proper place. The other thing, we're starting, as he said, an index on Bucyrus people. And if you haven't filled out one of those papers that I passed out at the last meeting, I've got some out here. you can put your work history on there, and we're going to make an index so that it will be in the museum that you can look up, your relatives to come can look up and see what you did and so on. So that's the items I got, so that's it for me.
Thank you, enjoy your time here. You get out the gate, you just gotta put your car about a foot and a half from the gate, and it'll start beeping, and then you get out. Don't hit the gate, but a foot and a half from the gate, it's got an eye to see you. And not the gate came in, there's one right next to it, there's an in and out right next to each other, so the right-hand side. And if you can't get out, come ask us, don't just go through it. Thanks for coming, we got